Hello, everyone, and welcome to the War Party Podcast with me, your host, Chris Warren. We're on episode 12, I believe, so on a pretty good run. Thank you for joining us. Before we get into the news today, I want to address that I am recording this on Saturday. I normally record the podcast on Sunday, but my schedule is such that I need the extra day of kind of cushion time to make sure everything gets done and be less stressed out, quite frankly. So from now on, I'm going to start playing around with when I record it. I think we're going to start recording it on Saturday regularly. So with that in mind, all the info I'm talking about is current and correct as of Saturday. So if something crazy happens on Sunday and I don't address it in this podcast, that's what happened. There's going to be 24 hours between now on Saturday till it gets released at 6 a.m. on Monday. So keep that in mind. I apologize if I missed anything, and we'll see how that works out going forward. Before we get into the news, I'd like to wish everybody a happy Good Friday. I hope you had a good Friday, and enjoy this weekend. Enjoy Easter. For those that celebrate. I, over this last week, celebrated Passover, because you know me, I'm a Jew. And I've mentioned this before, but I'm a convert to Judaism, so no one in my family other than myself is Jewish. So I don't go to, like, my mom's house and have a big family Passover because they're going to be celebrating Easter, which I will go celebrate with them. I still have, fun with Christmas, Easter, all the classics. It makes my mom happy I show up, so I do that. But this last weekend was Passover. And so I went, I go to different Passovers every year. I'm kind of like an orphan child. I get passed around to my different friends who are Jewish, their families' Passovers, which is very nice. I never spend a Passover alone. There's a kind of a rule in Judaism that no Jews should be alone on Passover. So people have been very good to me over the years, always inviting me to their Passovers and making sure I have a Seder to go to. So this year I went to my friend Courtney's house. It was delightful. Spent time with her family. Became very good friends with her mother. Because if you don't know this about me, there is one category of person that I get along best with probably in the world, and it is older Jewish women. Older Jewish women love me. I love them. We get along great. We have the same dry sense of humor. And it's great because you'll go to any Passover I go to, I'll find the grandma or the great aunt. And I'll usually sit next to her. And anytime someone does something stupid or gets a little too drunk, we just look at each other like, you see that shit? And we'll just be catty and make fun of the whole situation. So that was a lot of fun. Thank you to Courtney and her family for including me in your holiday festivities. I really appreciate it. Now, with all that being said, let's get into the news, guys. So Trump did a speech earlier this week that was highly anticipated, kind of an update on what's going on, especially with the Iran situation. And I watched it with some friends, and at the end of it, they asked me, Chris, did I miss something? He didn't really say anything. Did I miss something? You follow geopolitics. Can you explain to me what I missed? And the answer is you didn't miss anything. He literally said nothing for, what was it, 30 minutes? It wasn't a very long address. He just kind of had word vomit, like a word salad for 30 minutes, and every statement was contradictory to the statement before it. Like, he's just talking about how, yeah, well, Iran's pretty much defeated. They're pretty much beat. They're pretty much done for. We've kind of won the whole war. That's definitely not a war. Epic Fury's not a war. It's a specialized military operation, but we definitely won it. And that's why for, like, the next few weeks, we have to go even harder and bomb them even more. We have to go crazy style on them. We have to annihilate them. I'm being hyperbolic, obviously. Sorry, the Trump impression gets worse and worse. I used to be pretty good at it. Now it's bad. You even saw right there it devolved pretty quickly over that minute I did it. But he's basically talking about how Iran is defeated, which anyone who's been following the news even on a surface level knows that's not really that true. They're still doing a lot. They're causing a lot of problems. The strait is still closed. I mean, there's more transit than there has been since the beginning of the war. That is true. More ships are going through than before, but it's not back to like pre-war standards. It's still holding up global trade, especially with oil. But so they're not defeated. And the concept that if they were somehow basically defeated, why would it make sense to attack them even more aggressively, go after them even harder. That kind of contradicts itself. That doesn't really make sense. It's like beating a dead horse. But apparently, Iran, thank God, is defeated in this war that is not a war, it's a military operation. And because they're defeated in this military operation, that means we need to attack them twice as hard. So I know you guys probably aren't military strategists, but that actually makes a lot of sense. It doesn't. It was a very depressing speech. It did not fill me with confidence. To be honest, Trump, I've always been someone that said that, like, for all his faults, Trump is one of the most charismatic, funniest people, not just in politics, but on the planet. And I've stood by that for years. And, like, if you watch his old rallies from not this last election cycle, but the one he lost to Biden, those were some of the funniest things I've ever seen. If you just watched one of his, I think was it Tulsa, Oklahoma? I think it might have been that. It was one of his last rallies of the election with Biden. And it is quite possibly the greatest stand-up special of that year. When people ask me, what was your favorite stand-up special this year? You're a comedian, you watch comedy. I said, the Trump rally. It was hysterical. The man's hilarious. He had some act-outs, like some physical things. He did a whole thing about him saluting the soldiers. He did some crowd work, was calling out to people, hey, I see you over there. And he was doing some impressions. He was doing current events. He was doing one-liners. Like, bro's unmatched. He was crushing it. And that makes me really sad to see that, like, his biggest redeeming quality was him being charismatic and funny and, like, likable in a way where you didn't want to like him because he was doing stupid shit, but you're like, oh, I was always like, God damn it. I hate what he just announced, but that joke at the end was so funny. I weirdly kind of like him on some level. And this speech was absent of any of that. There was none of the old school Trump charm. There was none of the charisma. He seems tired. He seems deflated. He seems over the whole situation. And it's just, so now there's not even that positive. So really a depressing state of the presidency, a depressing state of America. Not a super encouraging speech. Definitely, like I said, not in his fighting shape, shall we say. So that was a bit of a bummer. There was some other stuff he covered in there, but he kind of just droned on about nothing. So not super a ton to cover in there. That being said, let's talk about the whole Trump administration, because I'm going to be real with you. The Trump administration is one of my all-time favorite administrations that's ever existed. It's up there with the Bush administration. It's up there with the Nixon, the Reagan administration, purely because it is the funniest collection of human beings I have ever seen. And I know I talk a lot of shit about Trump, and I stand by what I've said about him, and I'm sorry if that upsets you. If you're like a huge MAGA guy, you're still, no hate. You're still welcome to watch the podcast. I respect our difference of opinions. Not a huge fan of the guy. I think I've been pretty clear of that on this podcast. But I will say that if Trump's people contacted me and said, hey, Chris, Trump actually saw your podcast, and he loves it. He watches your daily videos every day. You're where he gets a lot of his news. He laughs and he shares them with JD and the rest of the cabinet, and they all sit around and talk about how funny you are. He likes them from his alt account. Some of those comments, the nice comments you've been seeing, are actually from Trump's alt account. And because of that, he would love you to come be on staff on the administration. He'd love to have you come be kind of the new PR public relations guy, run the social media. I would do it in a second. I would abandon all principles. I would delete any footage, any videos, any public statements I've made against Trump or the current administration. I would delete all that shit, would go offline in an hour. And I would go do the job. Not even for the money, just for the concept that I could work for this historically funny administration. That would be awesome. So Trump people, if anyone on the Trump administration is listening right now, hit your boy up. I'll switch sides so fast, dude. I'll come work for you. And here's the thing. Whoever your social media guy is right now, he was pretty good for a while. I'm going to be real. For a while, he had some funny memes. They were a little disturbing that they were coming from the official White House account, and, the presidential, seal of approval on some of that stuff was, a little wild. Let's be honest. But they were funny. It was crazy, in kind of a morbid way. And recently, he's lost his touch, though. I got to be honest with you, Donnie. You're whatever 23-year-old 4chan guy you got running the socials I respect what he's trying to do. Because if you've been keeping up recently on Twitter over like the last week or so, the fucking official White House account has been like schizo posting, like posting the shit of like legitimate schizophrenics I know, what they would post on Facebook if they were in charge of the White House account. Like, there were several videos where it was a quick like flash of something, like it looked like someone had filmed like from the hip a group of people walking, and it was dark and blurry, and it was only a couple seconds, and almost like a big thing's coming, just you wait. Can you figure out from this clue what's going to happen? It was kind of like that vibe. And I get what you were trying to do, but it didn't really play, man. It just made people scared and confused. I don't know if that's the vibe you're going for. I guess no publicity is bad publicity. Here I am talking about it. So, hey, I haven't talked about your posting before, and now I'm talking about it. So maybe you are doing something right. Maybe I'm the idiot. But I think I could do a better job. I think we could smooth it over. I think you put me in charge of the entire government social media. You give me like 6 months, I could get your approval rating above 70. People would be going, listen, I don't like the policy, because I'm not going to be able to change the policy as the PR guy. Let's be real. But I can make it sound funnier. I can make it seem cooler. I can make some arguments, right? I was in debate club in high school. I'll make some arguments. I'll get people to be like, you know what? I don't agree with everything that the administration's doing. But whoever's running their social media is pretty funny. You got to give it to Trump. That was a great picking Chris Warren for social media director, for head of PR. So funny. I look forward to his press conference every day. He's cracking jokes with the reporters, dude. They have a nice rapport back and forth. It's great. It's great on-air chemistry, that Chris Warren. So just throwing it out there, guys. If you know someone that can get me that job, I would love to do that. That would be a dream come true, to be part of an administration. And just to be clear, Gavin Newsom, when you inevitably win the presidential election in 2008, I take all of this back. I would be happy to work for your administration. I'm an equal opportunity employer. I'm kind of like my hero Kissinger. I seek power for power's sake. Right now, I'm able to be honest and say what's really in my heart and on my mind, free of consequences, because I'm not, like, famous or anything. And I don't really make any money from social media or this podcast. I mean, I make money on the road doing comedy and stuff, and thank you to those who come to the shows. But, like, I'm not risking a ton of money or prestige or, like, a really cool job in the administration, and I'm not going to have millions of people outside my door with pitchforks if I say something people don't like. That's kind of the freedom of being low level in this game. That is one of the freedoms. But I'll give all that up and say things I don't mean if you let me be part of the White House administration, whoever's in charge of the White House administration at that point. I'll do it. So hit me up. But we also got some heavy hitters. And like I said, the Trump administration's hilarious. It's like a cast of characters. It's the island of misfit toys. It's one of the funnest administrations we've had. First of all, we got Kash Patel, who we talked about a little bit a while ago about him get his emails getting hacked by Iran and all the dorky pictures of him sniffing cigars and all that stuff. But Kash Patel's awesome. I'm a Kash Patel apologist, and not because I agree with him or I think he's competent. Quite the opposite. Dude, this guy's living my fucking dream. This guy looks confused 90% of the time. I'd say 95% of the time he has no idea what he's talking about. He has no idea what's going on around him. And quite frankly, he looks like a confused Muppet that just got concussed. Like a Muppet that just got a concussion and is looking around Sesame Street not knowing what's going on, which I think is fun. Meanwhile, he's just flying around on a private jet, sniffing cigars, fucking getting drunk with the U.S. Olympic hockey team. That looked fun. They were broing it up in the locker room. They're spraying beer everywhere. He's putting on the gold medal. Woo, USA. Like, guy's having the time of his life. And this whole time he's got a woman beside him who is, let's just be real, gorgeous. Gorgeous. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, to each their own. But, like, she is a conventionally attractive woman. I don't think you can argue against that. Like, she's hot. And she's clearly, like, a Mossad asset, right? Like, we all know she's like his Mossad handler, right? That's not news to anyone, right? Because she's Israeli, and not that I think every Israeli is plugged into Mossad or like part of some grand scheme, but in this case, a super hot Israeli woman being with a guy who I just described as a concussed Muppet, who happens to be the FBI director. Like, he's in charge of the whole FBI. He doesn't have, they just let him be in charge of the whole FBI. He doesn't have a boss. Doesn't that seem a little convenient? Doesn't it seem like, that probably would never happen normally? Like, no offense, Kash, you're not an ugly guy or anything, but if I had a friend that looked like you and you were dating a woman that looked like your girlfriend, I would think, damn, does my buddy Kash make more money than I thought? Is he secretly a millionaire? What's going on here? How'd he pull this girl, this woman, you know? So I think, to me, when you add up all the different details, you know, each one of them by themselves isn't that crazy, but put it all together, kind of seems like she might be, at the very least, sympathetic to Mossad and the Israeli cause. At the very least, she might have some contact with a guy who works at Mossad. That's all I'm saying. I think she's his CIA his Mossad handler. That's what I think's going on there. Kind of, you know, classic Israeli move of getting a Mossad asset or a Mossad agent close to someone in a position of power and kind of tipping the scale a little bit in Israel's favor, which, hey, don't hate the player, hate the game. The Israelis do it counterintelligence better than anyone, better than the CIA. I'm ashamed to admit, I love the CIA. We're #1 CIA supporters here. We love the Pentagon. But the Mossad gives us a run for our money, and this is a perfect example of that. Then as we go down the list, we got Pam Bondi, the GOAT, this evil witch of a woman who, while Americans are like losing their homes and jobs and don't know how they're going to feed themselves, the youth of America doesn't have health insurance, is crippled by college debt, has no idea how they're ever going to buy a house. None of them are getting married. None of them are having kids. They'll all cite financial worries as the reason they're avoiding these things. And then you got Pam Bondi famously saying, well, the Dow Jones is over 50,000, so everything's cool. Why don't we shut the fuck up about this whole Epstein thing? What are you even talking about? Which, that's a company man move. Respect Pam Bondi. That's the kind of energy I would bring to any administration that hired me. I'm a team player. And there's some rumors that potentially Pam Bondi might testify in front of Congress. That's what a lot of people are trying to pull to have happen. And why? Because it went so well last time she spoke publicly. That being said, the Dow Jones isn't at 50,000 anymore. I believe in my notes it says here it's at around 46,000 as of April 2nd. So it's about 4,000 down from when she did that. So she might have to come up with some new talking points. The 50,000, 46,000 doesn't quite have the same ring to it as 50,000. So she might want to hold off till she figures out another move. But I do think she's funny as well. Not as funny as Kash, but she's up there. Then you have my bae, dude. You have my absolute bae. You have Karoline Levitt. Oh my God. Here's the thing, guys. Karoline Levitt's a babe. I don't know if you've seen a picture. I'll put a picture of her up here. She's hot, dude. She's just a pretty blonde woman with huge tits. And what is more American than a pretty blonde woman with huge tits? That's like apple pie or a bald eagle. That's on, say what you want about Trump. He knows the American brand. He leaned into it with that one. And she's so pretty, and she's so sweet, and she has no idea what she's talking about. And I'm not being sexist, by the way. I want to be clear on that. Pam Bondi, for all her evil, is a very competent woman. So credit where credit's due. Karoline Levitt, not so much. That might have been a hire based on appearance. And she has my dream job. I want to be that. If I was a hot blonde chick with huge fucking tits and a sweet disposition, I would be Karoline Levitt. God had to nerf me by making me a weird, spindly Jewish man so that I couldn't go be the White House press secretary. He had to nerf me. I would have been too powerful. I would have influenced geopolitics too much. So he nerfed me by giving me this podcast instead, which I enjoy. But dude, she's living my fucking dream. She's just out there reading the company line, the party line on everything. Not a care in the world, just smiling and looking around, being hot. And I will not tolerate hate of Karoline Levitt, okay? She's making the most of her situation. She saw an opportunity. She went for it. Good for her. We love you, Karoline. I want your job. I will take it if they offer it to me. But in the meantime, I think, babe, you're doing great. We're proud of you. Then we got Howard Lutnick, which is the Commerce Secretary. He's basically in charge of the economy, for those that don't know. And Howard Lutnick is so fucking clearly, like, you know, we talked about how Kash Patel's girlfriend is his Mossad handler. Howard Lutnick is very clearly Trump's Mossad handler. I'm going to call it like I see it, right? Howard Lutnick, for those that don't know, is a wealthy finance guy, and he lived in New York for a while. And he claimed originally that he had never met Jeffrey Epstein. Never even heard of the guy. What? Who's that? That creepy weirdo? No, I don't know who that is. And then the story changed that, like, oh, okay, well, you know, we saw you were next door neighbors for years with him in an upscale New York neighborhood. And Howard Lutnick went, I forgot. Yeah, he was my neighbor. But, like, technically, but I didn't even know that. We never interacted. You know New York. You don't know your neighbors, right? It's not a small town. And then there was more evidence that they had interacted, and Howard was like, okay, well, yeah, no, he was my neighbor, and we did interact a few times, but, like, I only talked to him, like, 2 or 3 times, and then once me and my wife went and had dinner at his mansion next door, and then he, Epstein took me to this other room and told me how he gets a massage every week and said it was the right kind of massage, and I was like, oh, that's obviously creepy. He's talking about prostitute. I don't want anything to do with that. No, I got to get out of here. This is a bad dude. That's when I realized Epstein was a bad dude. So, yeah, we were neighbors, and we hung out like 3 or 4 times. But, like, then once I realized he was a creep, I got away from. I didn't realize how much of a creep he was. I didn't know about the island stuff. But once I got the vibe, he was a creep towards women. I'm an upstanding family man. I got out of there. And then they were like, yeah, didn't you continue to contact him for years and also go to the famous island? And then Howard Lutnick was like, okay, fine. Okay, so we were neighbors, and we did hang out a couple times and have dinner, and he did know my wife. And sure, I went to the island 1 time, but I went there with my wife and children. I had no idea what that island was being used for as night. We went during the day, and we had a lovely little tropical island experience, very wholesome, very above board, and then me and my wife and children left. I was with my wife and children. I couldn't have done anything weird or creepy there. The guy's lied like 4 different times about the level of connection he has to Jeffrey Epstein. So clearly, you know, this is at least what's been confirmed publicly up to the point where he's been to the island. Again, it was with his wife and family, so nothing weird happened, right? But he's lied about everything else. I wouldn't be surprised if we found out he lied about that being the only time he went to the island, and that maybe he had been there like another, 5 or 6 times without his wife. When the island was in full swing, if you get my drift. So, yeah, he was definitely a little connected to Epstein. Definitely a little more connected to Epstein than he'd like to publicly admit. And as we've discussed in previous episodes, I won't give a whole nother rundown on it because, we've discussed it. Epstein was clearly a Mossad access asset, a.k.a. Mossad used him, funded him, so that he could build these connections and this network with all these political figures, all these financial figures, all these tech figures, all these celebrities, so that Israel would have its foot in the door to compromise people and get them to turn public favor towards the Israeli cause and turn political position, the Washington position, bills that were being voted on towards favoring Israel's geopolitical goals. So, and, you see that with Epstein's connection to Ehud Barak, who is the former head of Israeli military intelligence and the IDF and was a prime minister of Israel, who was casually best friends with Epstein. And that's all pretty public. That's not even conspiracy. And then both of them coordinated basically a intelligence spy deal with the Ivory Coast, Côte d'Ivoire, in Africa, when that dictator of that country was coming to power, and they basically sold him a spy package, for lack of a better word, basically a surveillance package that Israel would give them all the technology and know how to spy on their own populace and neighbors, so that the new dictator could crush any sort of opposition. And he's been dictator since, I think, 2010, so it worked out pretty well for him buying that. Honestly, great ROI on buying a security package from Ehud Barak and Epstein. And then they did the same thing in Mongolia. So, the whole evidence for Epstein being connected to the Ivory Coast thing was Ehud Barak was actually meeting with that president in the Ivory Coast. And meanwhile, Epstein was meeting with his, I believe it was his son and his niece and his nephew in New York City in his famous big New York mansion. And were reportedly very close friends with, the niece and nephew and the son. So it kind of seems like Ehud was handling things over there. Epstein was handling things stateside. And through all those connections, they were able to work out all the parts of, moving parts of that deal. And again, they did the same thing in Mongolia. I got off on a tangent. I'm sorry. I could talk about Epstein all day. I don't want to do that, though, because we've done that for several podcasts now. But just so you know, that's kind of proof, just a little more proof that Epstein was clearly a Mossad access agent. And being as close to Lutnick as he was, and his whole job being to compromise people for Mossad and Israel, might have compromised Lutnick as well. And now all of a sudden, Lutnick, over the last few years, has been one of Trump's best buddies. He's appeared in way more public events than you'd expect a U.S. Commerce Secretary to appear in. He's seen at all these speeches that, like, why would the Secretary of Commerce be there? That doesn't really make sense. And he seems to have a lot more because here's the thing. Tell me who the Secretary of Commerce was for Biden. How about Obama? Can you tell me for Bush? And the answer is no, you can't. And I actually can't even either, because historically they're not that public of a figure. They're not seen as like this important political figure that gets covered on news or makes public appearances or talks to the president all that much, quite frankly. It's a more low-key cabinet position. But all of a sudden, Howard Lutnick, after being buddy-buddy with Epstein, is now seemingly the most important person to ever have this position, with the most influence of anyone to ever have this position over the president. And that leads me to believe that Howard Lutnick is either Trump's Mossad handler, or at the very least is an access agent for Mossad into the Trump administration. And I don't think he's the only one, but he's the most flagrantly, publicly obvious one. So that's Howard. That's another man in the Trump administration. Very goofy, very fun administration. And then you got our boy, Pete Hegseth. Bro, listen, when everyone freaked out about Pete Hegseth when he was first announced, I was like, guys, I don't really know much about this Hegseth fella. He doesn't seem all that crazy. I think we're being a little hyperbolic. I think we're being a little dramatic just because, you don't like Trump. Now you automatically don't like this guy. Maybe he'll be fine. Let's give him a chance. He hasn't really had that much experience in politics before. There's not really a record to look at. And early on, the things he said were pretty, he basically said nothing. It was like the classic politician sounding poetic while basically saying nothing and not taking a stance. And I was like, nothing crazy's been said so far. Let's see how he does. Boy, was I wrong on giving him a chance. Because this guy is out of his fucking mind. Out of his fucking... Dude, the things he says are so... Like, he was talking the other day about how we need to bomb Iran, and then did a passage from the Bible, and I don't remember off the top of my head, I apologize. I don't want to misquote prayer. Basically about how, like, God will knock the teeth out of the unjust and the evil. And, that's what he's talking about. Iran, obviously. They're the evil ones, guys. And it's like, listen, I'm pro-America. The American flag, again, is not ironic. I love America. I love our servicemen. I love the military-industrial complex. I'm fascinated by it. That's my special fixation. I love this country. I've been pretty supportive of most wars America's gone to. But when you look at the Iran situation, I don't know if you can look at, like, unprovoked bombing of a country to start a war, and then the fact that whether it was on purpose or not, whether it was because there's arguments over this, and, whether it was an accident or on purpose, we've blown up a couple schools. We blew up a little girl's school in the first day of the war, a girl's school. And Iran can't super hit us back. Like, they've hit a couple military bases, but they're not, like, bombing our civilian population. And meanwhile, we kind of are bombing theirs. And it's like, Hegseth, I'd be real careful on praying for God to punish the unjust. Because it might not be Iran in this situation, but it might be you. You might want to be careful there, reaping what you sow. But he's out of his fucking mind. Also, just, like, using any religion like especially Christianity, like famously, and people will give me shit for this, but like truly famously a religion that like preaches peace and like turning the other cheek and being kind to your neighbor, and invoking like Jesus's name to like justifying you killing people is fucking it's like weirdo shit. And it's quite frankly, listen, I'm not Christian, so I can't, it's not my place to say, but to me it comes off offensive. It comes off disrespectful to the Christian faith, and that maybe you keep that away from what you're doing. Maybe don't use that to justify what you're doing. Maybe just own that that's what you wanted to do or you felt you had to do, and that Jesus probably doesn't have anything directly to do with that. That was kind of a decision you made, Pete. That was kind of a decision you made. And then he's just kind of a goofball. He's got like the big Crusader cross, people keep calling it, on his bicep, and I want to clarify something. That's not a Crusader cross. That's not what a Crusader cross looks like, guys. And I don't blame the average person. Most people aren't history nerds like myself. So, like, why would you know that? And then the news calls it a Crusader cross. And then as far as you're concerned, that's a Crusader cross because that's what they told you. It's not a Crusader cross. It's a cross of Jerusalem. And it's a historic Christian symbol. And it was at one point the flag of the city-state of Jerusalem, which did take place back during the Crusades, but there were Crusader states in the Middle East. Jerusalem was not a Crusader state. It was an actual city-state. It was like a normal country, for lack of a better word, like a normal medieval country. And that was their flag. And that flag and that cross existed before the city-state of Jerusalem, which was at one point ran by King Baldwin, famous from a lot of movies and media. You see him, he's the guy with the mask on. I'll put a picture. He's got the mask on. Very cool historical figure, the Leper King. And that cross, the reason it looks like that, right? So it's a cross, right? Christianity, obviously, it's going to be a cross. And then there's 4 smaller crosses in between the bars of the cross. And the reason for those 4 smaller crosses is because each one represents one of the Gospels, one of the 4 Gospels in the New Testament. And it's a really cool symbol. Like, I'm into symbology and all that stuff. Like, you find different cultures and things have different symbology and symbols throughout history. And when you look into, like, the meaning behind them and how they were founded, I just find that stuff fascinating. And so I think it's one of the cooler symbols in history when you get into, like, its context and all that stuff and why it looks the way it does and how it was used in history. And now this jackass is getting up there, and he's calling it a Crusader cross, which it's not. It's a Jerusalem cross, and it's ruining it for everyone. By the way, I have a buddy who's a super Christian, always trying to convert me to Christianity. And to his credit, people will be like, doesn't that annoy you? Wow, that was kind of fucked up. He tried to convert you to Christianity. I'll have some friends say that to me. Don't bother me. Listen, in my friend's estimation, I'm going to hell because I'm a Jew and I have not accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. Hey, that's his world belief. I'm not going to hold that against him. I would be more offended if he didn't try to convert me. If he looked at me every time I saw him and said, well, Chris is going to hell, that's a shame, but I don't want to be rude. I don't want to be rude and try to save his eternal soul. My friend went, nah, fuck that. I'm going to save this guy's soul. And so we have a deal, basically, that once every 6 months, he is allowed to try to convert me to Christianity. I will listen to him with an open mind and an open heart, and we will have a longer conversation. It's usually like anywhere from 2 to 4 hours, where he'll try to convert me. And, he'll ask me questions, I'll ask him questions. We'll go over scripture because despite not being a Christian, I have a pretty good knowledge of a lot of the church fathers' documents, or writings rather, and a lot of the different saints' writings and the Bible in general, including the New Testament, because, again, I'm a nerd. I'm a history nerd. That stuff's all throughout history. And obviously I know what you guys I would call the Bible, what a lot of you would call the Old Testament. So, and he has a great knowledge as well. We go back and forth. It's a very fun conversation. And I'm never offended because, hey, he thinks that I might go to hell and he wants to save my soul. And I remember the way I found out is I asked him, hey man, do you think I'm going to hell because I'm a Jew? And he hesitated and then he goes, I would just feel much more comfortable if you accepted Jesus before you die. And that was a polite way of saying 100%. So respect for him for keeping it real. Respect to him for trying to save my immortal soul. I'll never be offended by that. That being said, a lot of people do try to convert me online. They'll DM me, and your heart's in the right place. right? I don't hate you for that. I don't think it's offensive. But know your shit. That's all I'm going to ask. Because if you DM me and try to convert me to Christianity, and I start asking you to explain the Trinity, and I start asking you questions about the Council of Nicaea, and I start asking you questions about old heresies and what's Gnosticism and different church father works, and I start quizzing you on Aquinas, and you don't know the answers, don't try to convert me. Know your shit if you're going to go. It's a bad look if you come try to convert me to Christianity, and I know more about Christianity than you. And I'm not saying every Christian has to go be a biblical scholar. That's not what I'm saying. Have whatever relationship with Jesus and God that you want to have that makes sense for you. Not everyone can be a monk or a priest or something, right? But if you're at the point where you're trying to go out there and convince someone to change their entire worldview, you should know a thing or two about that worldview. You should have at least read the entire... I've talked to people who tried to convert me that hadn't even read the whole Bible. It's like, dude... You gotta put in the work. You can't just have the glory of saving someone's soul. You gotta put in the book work. You gotta do the nerd shit, take notes, highlight, go through the Bible, ask questions to your religious elders, all that stuff. So, sorry, that's just a little personal gripe because listen, it doesn't bother me. I have great love for Christianity. I'm a huge Catholic apologist, as people keep calling me in the comments, but the Catholic Church, great. I'll defend them. Fuck you if you don't like it. So it doesn't bother me. But, like, if you come to someone who doesn't have as positive an experience with Christianity and try to convert them, and you look like a jackass because you don't know your shit, that could turn someone off of Christianity for the rest of their life. So I'm just saying you might be doing more damage than good without knowing it. That's all. That show was a little bit of a diatribe. I apologize. Yeah, but Pete Hegseth is a fucking... He's proven himself to be a moron. I would like to apologize for defending him early on. Not even defending him, but just being like, guys, give him a chance. Give him a chance. Maybe he won't be so that bad. And then he is that bad. My bad. We all make mistakes. He ended up being that bad. Pete Hegseth also asked the Army Chief of Staff to step down, and that man is General Randy George. General Randy George was put in that position under Biden, and that is pretty much, for those that don't know, the U.S. Army Chief of Staff is like one of the top dogs in the whole military-industrial complex, the Pentagon, whatever you want to call it. It's a big deal. And let me just give you a little info on my boy General Randy George here. And I wrote it down because I don't want to get it wrong, so I apologize if I look like a jackass looking at my notes. But I want to give respect to the man because he served this country quite a bit. So he's been in the Army for decades, by the way. No spring chicken. Like, he, from a young age, has been in the military. Whole life, pretty much. And he did multiple wartime deployments, combat deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan. So he's not some armchair general. He's not sitting in some command away from the battlefield. He's not in Washington. I'm not saying he was on the front line. No, that's not what like high-level officers do. But he was out in Afghanistan and Iraq where the combat was happening. He had experience with all that. He was running a war from the ground, right? And the troops apparently love him. And listen, if any of my military listeners would like to give me more information on what the troops think about him, because I can only read what I read. I haven't gotten a chance to talk to some of my friends in the military this last week when this news broke, because they're a little busy right now. Just be real. So, apparently the troops love him. He's seen as a soldier's general, meaning he's not he's not disconnected from the men, from what I can tell, right? And maybe this is a little bit of fluff, a little bit of propaganda, if you will, for him. But he does seem to be like a solid dude. The military seems to really be fond of him. He has an excellent service record. He did serve combat deployments. He's the real deal, for lack of a better word. He's the real deal. Not some Nepo baby. He's like the real deal when it comes to soldiering, as it were. And when I say he was asked to step down, let's be super clear on what that means. Let's not mince words. He was fired. Pete Hegseth fired this guy. And they're making excuses like, oh, this was all part of an overarching plan to shake up the military. Whatever the fuck that means. Right? And they had a couple other excuses I won't even bother giving credence to. I have heard rumors. There's rumors on the internet. And I am inclined to believe these. There's a theory, if you will. Some might call it a conspiracy theory, but there's a theory. That the reason that General Randy George was asked to step down, a.k.a. fired by Pete Hegseth, is because they might have been asking him to put boots on the ground in Iran. And I'm not saying a full-scale invasion, but to put troops in Iran, even if that's special forces targeted operations. And General Randy, and this is all the theory, right? There's no evidence of this right now. So I just want to be clear on that. I think that they asked him to put some form of troops in Iran or greenlight it, and he told them to go fuck themselves. I think the broski, Randy, I think he said, nah, I'm not getting my men killed over this bullshit. You guys fucked up. You deal with it. I'm not getting my boys killed over that. Fuck you. And they fired him over it. So, again, we don't know if that's true. These are rumors. These are conspiracy theories. Obviously, the White House and Pentagon wouldn't let us know if that was, the things. They don't want anyone to know whether or not they're going to do troop movements and things. But I have a feeling that that's what happened. That's my gut. That's my instinct. I've talked to several other people that follow stuff like this, and we all kind of agreed that's what we think's happening. So if that is true, General Randy George, I want to thank you for your service to the United States of America. You fulfilled your oath to uphold the Constitution and protect this country, and you potentially, with your sacrifice of your career, let's just call it what it is, the man sacrificed a lifelong career in the military to potentially save tens of thousands of lives, both American troops and Iranian civilians and troops. So, salute to you, sir. That's fucking badass. That's a real man right there. I respect that shit. I respect that. You're like, I'm not putting my fucking name on that getting people killed. Just fucking fire me. Good for you. We need more guys like you in the military and in government in general. You're a real one, dude. Run for office. I don't know if you're Republican, Democrat. It doesn't even really matter to me. I'll vote for you. If I'm a place where I can vote for you, I'll vote for you, dude. You seem like a solid-ass motherfucker. That's real leadership. So thank you for that, sir. You might have saved tens of thousands of lives with your personal sacrifice. Also, in relation to potential boots-on-the-ground situations in Iran, I've heard another theory, again, a conspiracy theory. I always like to be clear when things are confirmed in the news or when things are more theories or rumors, right? So you determine whether you want to believe this kind of stuff or not. That's up to you. I just report what I hear. But in terms of boots on the ground in Iran, the potential for that, I've heard that there is theoretically, hypothetically, a plan for troops to secure an airstrip in Iran. I forget the name of it off the top of my head. It's some Farsi name. You've heard me try to pronounce Farsi names. I can't do it. But it's in like the southwest of the country. There's supposedly a hypothetical plan to secure that runway, that airfield with paratroopers, and then have military cargo planes, I think C-130s potentially, come in and then have all the enriched uranium loaded into them and flown away to kind of deny the Iranian uranium to Iran so they can't potentially build a nuke in the future. Although we've talked about on this podcast, I don't think they were ever really trying to build a nuke. It was more of like a political ploy. Does this sound, though, familiar to the time? Some of you are young. You might not remember this. Where Colin Powell got on the airwaves and told America that, in fact, Iraq had weapons of mass destruction and that there was yellow cake uranium, enriched uranium, proof of that through intelligence in Iraq. And that got everyone in America, like my parents and everyone of that. Here's the thing. Everyone now talks about how the Iraq war is a bad idea. And let's be real, it was the beginning of the collapse of the empire. We've talked about it on here. It clearly was, right? At the time, everyone was about it. 9/11 had just happened. Everyone was fucking terrified. And when the office of government office hadn't been completely destroyed, its reputation hadn't been destroyed, we still had some trust in institutions. So when Colin Powell got on TV and told everyone the Iraq has WMDs, they have yellow cake uranium, they're looking to make nukes, we got to go fucking in there. And by the way, they did 9/11. Everyone, for the most part, believed him and went, yeah, hell yeah, let's fucking get this guy. And then we got to Iraq, and there was no WMDs, and there was Not even any yellow cake uranium. In fact, there was no enriched uranium. There was no uranium of any kind. There was no nuclear material. There was no nuclear bases. There was no nuclear research sites. There was none of it. Because Colin Powell lied to the American people. Because Rumsfeld and Dick Cheney approached him and were like, we need to sell this war, Colin. We need to sell this war. And we know we're not like, no one's going to trust Rumsfeld and Cheney here. You know, we're from the Nixon administration. I mean, we worked under Reagan. God, no one's going to believe us when we pitch a war, right? I have billions of dollars in Halliburton, for God's sake. But they like you. Like, people don't remember, Colin Powell was kind of the likable people's choice for the Bush administration. Because Cheney and Rumsfeld were kind of already distrusted, shall we say, by the American people. Colin Powell was like the people's choice. He was like a solid military dude. He was liked. He had a squeaky clean record. Very good speaker, very likable, very charismatic. And so they picked him. And then they basically bullied him behind stage minutes before he went on air to say what he said. And in previous interviews after that, he admitted he lied to the American people. And I think in his own words, he said, and I know when I face my creator, I'll have to answer for that. So it haunted Powell the rest of his life. He had guilt about that. He was traumatized. And that was a little bit of a diatribe. I've been saying that a bunch this episode. I keep going on tangents. I'm a little hyped up. But doesn't that seem familiar? Doesn't that sound familiar to this, again, hypothetical conspiracy about securing an airfield to take out the hypothetical enriched uranium by plane from Iran? Just seems a little familiar, that's all. In other news is the Iran situation continues to escalate, although we seemingly seem to be moments away from a peace deal or a nuclear deal anytime I turn on the TV, and then the war keeps escalating somehow. It's interesting how that works. Who knows what's really going on? It seems to be escalating nonstop, quite frankly, despite what the government might say. Iran, because of this escalation, has played around with the idea and threatened publicly. They haven't done it yet, but they've threatened it. They're going to start cutting deep-sea underwater internet cables. For those that don't know, the internet is just a series of tubes. That old meme, it's truly, that's what it is. It's just a bunch of wires. So we connect entire countries' internet and continents' internet to each other through big cables on the bottom of the ocean. That's legit how the internet works. Isn't that fucking nuts? And Iran threatened to cut the cables that connect Asia to Europe. They threatened to cut the cable that connects North Africa to Europe. And they threatened to cut the cable that connects Europe to India. I mean, that last one, would that be the end of the world? Am I right? I don't know, some joke about scam calls. I'm above it. I'm above doing a cheap joke like that, okay? I am a legitimate working comedian, okay? I'm not going to make some do not redeem the cables joke, okay? I'll leave that to you in the comments. But they threatened to cut those cables, and, like, that's a huge fucking deal because those cables, like, cost a lot of fucking money and would take forever. They're so deep underwater, maybe you could repair them. From what I've read, it doesn't even make sense to repair them. You just have to replace them, which would be like a whole massive infrastructure project, and you wouldn't be able to get into where they were in the Red Sea, where they're threatening to cut them during a conflict. So, like, you just wouldn't have those access to internet. And it's not those places would be separated from each other, internet entirely. Just like a huge volume of internet traffic would have to go through different channels, like through things like 4 and 5G and satellite. And it would super slow down those systems and basically make internet like dial-up between those places. So that would be really bad. They haven't done it yet. They've threatened to do it, but we'll see. We'll see if they go through with it or not. Either way, it doesn't affect us. We live in America. Our internet's going to be fine forever, so you can always watch me. Don't worry. And to my fans in North Africa, Asia, and Europe, make sure to use Starlink to keep watching me if Iran does cut the cables. It's essential you keep informed, okay? Don't let the terrorist regime of Iran stop you from liking, commenting, subscribing to all of my content and sharing it with your friends, okay? That's your dude. Don't let the terrorists win. You have to keep supporting Chris Warren's online career. Kind of loosely connected to that, Iran has threatened and then followed through with attacking a U.S. company's AI infrastructure in the Middle East. They threatened to do it. Everyone kind of thought, you're bluffing. And then they fucking did it. And they've struck, I have it written here again, because the memory, I'm getting old. I'm getting tired. I got to read my notes more and more as the days go on. But they attacked AI infrastructure, hitting Oracle and AWS data centers in the UAE and Dubai, respectively. So they're blowing up data centers. And since the AI thing is pretty much all data centers, really a lot of the internet is data centers and storage facilities, that's not good. That's really not good. At the same time, Oracle is like comically evil. Like, people joke around about corporations being devil corporations or evil corporations. Oracle might actually be. You know, Oracle's doing some unhealthy things, and I had a friend that worked at Oracle for a while, because I used to work in tech, and apparently their corporate culture is, like, terrifying. They will, like, slit each other's throats for, like, a 2% raise. It's not a lot of great people over in Oracle management, allegedly, from what I hear, through the grapevine, through gossip. Take that for what you will. So on this one, like, honestly, Iran, listen, I don't like your regime. I don't like the Ayatollah. I don't like the whole theocratic state. I don't like how you oppose America, even though I've said I don't love that we're at war with you right now. That doesn't mean I like you guys. I still am not a fan of Iran overall, of the regime and its opposition to American geopolitical goals, not the people. The people, people are people everywhere. But Iran, I'm usually a pretty big critic of yours. On this one, maybe we just let Iran cook. Maybe we just let them do their thing, all right? AWS is Amazon's thing. Fuck them. Oracle's evil. Fuck them. You do you, Iran. No notes on this one. And still in the Middle East, an F-15E was shot down by Iran over Iran airspace, and this was an American jet. It had 2 occupants. Both were reportedly able to eject from the plane before it crashed and blew up. Supposedly, both survived, with the pilot being pretty quickly picked up by the U.S. Air Force's pararescue team, which shouts out to them. They're sick. They're kind of like the Air Force's version of the Navy SEALs. On a little, tangent here. Everyone thinks of special forces, and all they ever think about is the Navy SEALs. And shouts out SEAL Team 6. They are goated, all right? They're awesome. They killed bin Laden. They killed the Somalian pirates and saved Tom Hanks. They did a lot of cool stuff. They're awesome. I'm not here. I'm in no way shitting on the SEALs. I want to be so clear. Respect to the SEALs. They are some of the greatest operators of any country anywhere on the planet. They're top shelf, gold star, awesome. But people forget that every branch of the military has its special forces. So then the Army, some people will know that the Army's like tier 1 special forces is Delta Force. And they're fucking badass. They're awesome. We don't really have time to like super get into them, but they've done a lot of cool stuff. Love Delta Force, big fan. So people usually, pretty much everyone knows Navy SEALs. A lot of people who are kind of into military history things will know Delta Force. But then people forget that the Air Force has its own tier 1 operator. It's they are a unit of the pararescue team. And they are fucking crazy. They're like Navy SEALs in helicopters. And they go into places and they get stranded, usually pilots, but it can be any U.S. Service member, out of a bad situation. And that's what they did. They scooped up the pilot of this F-15, saved him almost immediately. He's alive and well as far as I know. His name's not been released, and we'll respect that privacy. Although I have some leads on who it might be, but that doesn't need to be public. But unfortunately, they have not found the weapons officer of the plane, who also ejected, and right now it's believed he landed behind enemy lines in Iran. Iran state media has announced a massive reward for his capture. So pretty much the entire nation of Iran is looking for this guy. He's potentially seriously injured. I mean, he fell thousands of feet from the sky. I mean, granted, he had a parachute and everything, but ejecting out of a plane and falling to the ground with that parachute is like, you'd still get pretty fucked up. Who knows if he got injured when the plane actually got hit. There's very little details about all that. So he is still MIA. He is believed to be behind enemy lines in Iran. Pararescue is looking for him nonstop. They have a lot of resources. They are looking to save him, and let's pray that they find him. because this man is now being hunted by the entire nation of Iran, potentially injured, running around behind enemy lines. I mean, quite frankly, this is a movie. I can't wait to see what Hollywood turns this into in a couple years when it becomes a movie. I'm praying Iran doesn't capture him, because who knows what they'll... I don't want Iran parading around a U.S. service member and using him for propaganda, and who knows what else they'll do to him when he's captured. I don't think they would kill him. I mean, I wouldn't put past the Iranians. I don't think they would kill him just because he's probably more useful as, like, a bartering chip or for, like, propaganda. Be like, look, we captured an American, all that stuff, put him on state media, kind of clown him. And I don't want to see that done to our boys. So I hope he is rescued alive and well and safe and quickly. And I'm praying for him. I'm praying for his family. And I encourage you to do that as well. And it will make a good movie, though. Not to make light of the situation. That's going to be a fucking sick move. Tom Cruise. They'll probably get Tom Cruise to play. Look at, what is he, like 65 at this point? They'll get 65-year-old Tom Cruise to play a 25-year-old U.S. airman that crash landed in Iran. And they'll add so much stupid shit that didn't happen in the movie. Like at one point, he'll steal like a Republican guard's gun and like take on a whole battalion by himself. And it'll be an awesome film. It'll be a real good time. But no, all jokes aside, I do hope, let's bring our boy home. Let's bring our boy home. I hope he is alive and well and will be rescued soon. But hopefully by the time you're listening to this on Monday, he's been rescued. So hopefully that's what I wake up to on Monday. Now, I know, guys, this episode we've been talking nonstop about the Middle East, especially Iran, and it's been that way for a couple episodes, but they just dominate the news. That's all the news is about because whether you want to call it a special military operation or a war, I mean, it is a war. Let's be honest. We're at war right now, so that's going to dominate the news. It does get a little tiresome to hear of it all every day over and over again. Before we leave Iran, though, I want to cover one last story about Iran, which is that the U.S. Air Force has just officially confirmed they're doubling their fleet of A10 Warthogs in the Middle East, supposedly to fight Iran. And for those that don't know the A10 Warthog, yes, you do. You don't think you do. It's the one that goes by. It's like the plane with a little smile painted on it, like a shark smile, and it flies and it goes, brr, 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 brr. It does that, and it strafes with like 1,000,000 bullets in seconds and just blows shit up. It's so cool. Yes, to all my aviation heads, it's a little outdated. It's not as practical as some of the new stuff that's replacing it, but it's so fucking, the cool factor is so over the top. It's so awesome. All right. I love the A10 Warthog. I know a lot of my fellow listeners out there will love the A10 Warthog. It's such a cool plane. It's such an iconic plane. And it's now in double numbers in the Middle East. And with Iran's air defenses, depending on whether you believe the U.S. or you don't, and what you believe in the news, because there's conflicting reports all the times. But supposedly, Iran's air defense system has been very much mitigated, almost destroyed, although it doesn't seem that way after that F-15 just got shot down, so maybe that's a little propaganda I'm buying into. But there are sections of Iran where the air coverage is, let's say, inadequate. And that leaves a lot of ground targets very vulnerable at the moment. And wouldn't you know, the A-10 Warthog gets shipped over there right as that happens. The A-10 Warthog, for those that don't know, loves to eat ground targets. Like, if you see an A-10 Warthog on the horizon, you know it's a bad day to be an Iranian tank crew or an Iranian APC driver. It's going to be bad for you. That shit munches armor. So, that's really cool. With that being said, the Air Force has previously stated their interest in retiring and phasing out the A-10 Warthog over the next few years, 2 or 3 years. I think their goal is by 2029 to kind of move it out of their fleet as a mainstay and replace it with newer technology. And I get that from a practical standpoint. There's newer planes that can do what the A-10 Warthog does better with less maintenance. But they won't have the cool factor of the A-10 Warthog. That's all I'm saying. The A-10 Warthog's fucking awesome. I'm a huge A-10 Warthog apologist. I will defend it to the day I die. And I think there's something poetic, something romantic, that it has been such a part of the global war on terror. It was used to such great effect and with such frequency in Iraq and Afghanistan to assist ground units as close air support. And that now that it's being phased out, these missions in Iran, if they do end up happening, might be some of the A10 Warthog's last true combat missions. And I think there is something kind of bittersweet romantic that the A10 Warthog got famous off the global war of terror, on terror in the Middle East, in combat missions in that region. And now it ends there, too. It ends with it's the last Middle Eastern country we hadn't touched yet. The last opposition regime we hadn't overthrown in the Middle East. We flipped Iraq. We flipped Syria. We flipped all these places. And the last opposition right there in Iran. And now the A10 Warthog gets to have fire missions there, too. And while it is sad to say goodbye to an old friend, it is nice to know that its last ride of the Rohirrim, as we would say, is going to be right where it all started in the Middle East. And isn't that just beautiful in a kind of ironic, bittersweet way? So combat footage on that's going to be fucking sick. It's going to go dummy. I'm so excited to watch it. I wish we still had live leak, so everything was centralized. I guess I'll just watch it in Instagram and TikTok form now. But man, that's going to be cool seeing those pilot cams on that. Tangentially related to the Middle East, but shifting more back to America over here. If you guys remember, in 2020, we killed a top Iranian general. He was Soleimani. I don't know. I'm bad with Farsi names. Fuck him, honestly, so I don't care if I'm mispronouncing it. Because again, I don't love that America's at war with Iran. I don't think that's a good use of resources. I think it's a waste of time and human life. But the Iranian regime has opposed American interests in that region around the world and funded a lot of bad actors against us. So I'm not here feeling sorry for the Iranian regime. The Iranian people, different story. People are people everywhere. I do feel bad for them. But the Iranian regime, world's smallest violin when Soleimani died, right? He was crossing over into Syria kind of covertly to try to assist and support Iranian-backed militias against the Assad regime, Iran's proxies over there. And the U.S. intelligence is amazing. Shouts out CIA. And we saw he was crossing into Syria, and we blew him up with a drone. If you remember, this was back when Trump was funny. He was hilarious about the situation. His press conference on that, fucking goated, my dude. So good. Back when he had that Trump charm to him. So go watch that if you want. But yeah, we killed him a while ago, and apparently now in America, and this is a little dystopian, is Americans, so how do I put it? His relatives, his distant relatives that live in America, apparently in California, are being arrested right now, or detained, I guess is technically the word. They're being detained by the U.S. government. And I don't think, listen, this is breaking news, so maybe more information will come out about the story. Maybe they're truly agents of Iran, or they have some connection that's problematic, and we'll get to the bottom of that. Maybe they needed to be detained for national security. Who knows? But I haven't heard anything about that just yet. I've just heard they've been detained purely on being his relatives, and that's a bad precedent to set. Because look at your family. I can say this for myself anecdotally. I have some uncles who have some wild opinions, have done some wild things that I'd rather not be publicly associated with. And I certainly don't want to be detained by the government, put in jail over something my drunk, retarded uncle does. That's not good. Look at my family having to deal with being associated with me in this podcast. Can you imagine if the cops went door to door and grabbed them over some shit I said on this podcast? None of them even know this exists. They're not interested in my career. They don't know what's going on here. So I think that's a bad precedent to be setting. I don't love that. I'm not one to cry human rights because I think that gets people cry about a lot of stuff being human rights that really aren't and exaggerate things. This one, however, seems like it might be bad. So again, not a lot of information about it. If it does turn out they have some unsavory connections to Iran, and then fuck them. They got arrested for good reason or detained. Again, I keep interchangeably using those words. They are different. But if not, and the government can just grab you for being the family member of someone who's an enemy, that's going to be bad because my uncle be posting some wild shit on Facebook, and I would rather not get detained over seeing him at Thanksgiving. That's all. Don't love that. Not a good sign of where we're headed as a country. So I'll let you know when we get more information about that. Hopefully they were all terrorists and this was justified, and I don't have to worry about the precedent setting. But Who knows? And lastly, before we get out of here, guys, a little off-topic news. This is a personal interest of mine. I think a lot of you guys will love it too. As some of you might know, I'm a huge fan of Warhammer 40K and the Warhammer 40K universe. Now, I don't play anymore because I simply don't have the time. And it is quite expensive, to be honest. But I used to back in the day. I used to love it. I used to paint the little models as a kid and in high school and college and things like that. Loved it. And I keep up with what's going on in the community and with Games Workshop releases, the company that makes Warhammer 40K. For those, it's a little tabletop game. You paint little space aliens and little space army men, and you roll dice and you battle them. It's kind of like D&D, but with armies. I know everyone that plays Warhammer 40K is like, that's not actually what it is. But like I'm saying, for the layman that knows nothing about Warhammer 40K, that'll give you at least an idea of what it looks like, right? And they just announced the return of none other than my favorite Primarch, Perturabo. Primarch of the Iron Warriors, my favorite Traitor Legion, my favorite Chaos Space Marine faction. And Perturabo has been, gone from the tabletop. He's been gone off in the distance in lore, as many of the Primarchs are off doing their own things outside of the margins of the main story. And every once in a while they have one come back because, quite frankly, they need to make sales, and so they'll bring back a novel where they return in the novel, and then they'll release a model for the tabletop that will sell gangbusters. And they haven't showed us what the Perturabo model is going to look like. But they did show some Perturabo artwork on the official website. So while his model's not officially announced yet, it does look like we're getting him, and I'm so excited. I want him to be like 2 feet tall. I want him to be so comically big compared to all the little Space Marines and shit like that. And if they actually do end up releasing a model, because I've seen all the other, they've released a bunch of Iron Warriors, new Iron Warriors kits over the last month or two leading up to this. I will get back into 40K. I will build an Iron Warriors army. I will build a 2,000 point Iron Warriors army, and I will go to my local Games Workshop store, and I will start playing tabletop again because I love the Iron Warriors. They're so cool. So a lot of good stuff for my 40K fans out there. So excited about Peter Turbo coming back, dude. I will get back into the hobby if Peter Turbo actually gets a model and I can get my hands on it. I'll build an army around him. I'm a terrible painter, so I'll ruin the model with my horrible painting. I don't know how to shade. I try to thin my paints, and I always thin them too much or not enough. I'm not good at any of it. Shading, highlighting, I always get washed. I do washes wrong somehow, even though they're supposed to be theoretically straightforward. There's a little inside baseball stuff, but I'm really excited about that, and that's the good news of the day. That's the good news of the day, is go look it up. Peter Turbo's back. Iron Warriors on top, dude. Fuck the Imperial Fists. Fuck that bitch-ass Rogel Dorn. All right? We back, baby. Well, guys, that is going to be it for this episode of the War Party Podcast with me, your host, Chris Warren. It's been so much fun, guys. Thank you for tuning in. You can follow me at Chris Warren Comedy on Instagram and TikTok. As always, you can DM me on Instagram. I do my best to get back to everyone. Please, truly, and I know it's stupid and corny, and everyone online tells you to do this, but seriously, please do like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends. It does really help me out in the almighty algorithm. I would love this podcast to keep growing. It does grow every week. We get more and more listeners. We release this on Spotify and YouTube, 6 a.m. every Monday, and would love to watch it expand and grow so we can do more and more cool things with it. So thank you, as always, for watching this week's episode. And remember, guys, wherever there's a war, there's always profit.